Hi, welcome to A Word with Kelly Scott Reed. We're here with Courtney Schembri Gray. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today? I mean, it's a Sunday, right? Where it's Sunday afternoon for us. What time is it for where you are?
It's just turned 6 o'clock in the evening, so it's been pretty much an uneventful day as Sundays usually are, I think.
Do you get a lot of writing done when you're have uneventful days and you don't have a ton of plans?
Well, we'll probably do this later, but generally I usually do, but because I've just finished the collection, I've kind of stopped for a minute. I need to write another Substack newsletter, but that'll be during the week.
Wonderful. So tell us about the work you just finished.
So it's a collection of poems, and it's called The Maggot on Maple Street. The title poem you published over at Roy. And it's essentially, I find it really hard to put collections together. I don't know why. I don't know whether I have some sort of thing. I find it really difficult to force a narrative and actually put this in the preface at the beginning so people will read that. But I've managed to help with Cody's help to put together a collection. It's essentially about feeling ignored, about grief, and pretty much all the stuff I've wrote in it has been for the past few months, I think. So there's technically a different style to it.
And when you start out writing, do you have a collection? Do you think, okay, I'm going to put this all together, or do you write individual pieces that just happen to fit together?
Well, this is what I really struggle with. I generally don't write in terms of collections ever. I think I used to when I first put one out when I was 18. I used to just purely do collections and I didn't publish for journals. But now it's a case of I find it really difficult because I think if I keep them aside for a collection, they just sit there for months and months because some places aren't open for publishing things and I just get antsy and so I just end up publishing everything anyway. But then the
Right.
places always say, oh, it can't be published in its entire form. So I find it really difficult. So generally, I usually just write them individually, and then if I want to do a collection, I'll do one eventually.
I don't want to gloss over Cody. Like you said, how great, that he was helping you. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he is. He really
Cody
is.
Sexton. Also, where are you located? Where in the world are you right now?
Oh, I'm in a little small town in the north of England.
What's it called? I like to
so,
know that.
it's called Bolton, but generally people don't know. It's basically just outside of Manchester. We're in the Greater Manchester area.
And you were talking about when you started writing, when you were 18. When did you first discover for yourself that language had power?
Well, in two ways, kind of when I was a kid, I've always been a writer. Like it's kind of cliche, but I don't know how it came about. I don't have writers or particular creators in my family. A lot of my family are logic brained kind of people. So it started then, but also because I was bullied, I guess you could say that words did have power in that sense. And I learned that very quickly because what people said about me stayed with me and it still stays with me. I still struggle with the things people said about me, and it really affected my self-esteem to which the point it's I have none, if I'm being honest.
Mm.
So that you definitely learn that words have power. I don't think people realize just how much words can affect people in a negative sense rather than a positive sense.
Mm-hmm. And when you were younger and you were writing, was it a way for you to find catharsis, to find a place where you could settle your emotions and your feelings about how you were treated? Was that what writing was doing for you, or was there any other purpose for it?
I think at the time I was more into fantasy at the time. I don't really read much fantasy anymore, but I suppose it was an escape, but also it was kind of, there was like a pull to it. It wasn't something that was conscious. It was kind of like I was being, I was kind of like the marionette. I wasn't in full control. I just knew I was writing these stories and that one day I wanted to see my name on a shelf in a book, and that's just what I wanted to do.
You say you're a marionette, so is there a conscious process for you or does it just kind of come downloaded and your pen kind of goes, or pen? How old am I? Typing or your pen? Does it kind of fully come out for you? Does it download, or is there a process or a thought behind it?
It's funny you should ask, because I think the other day I tweeted saying, don't ask me about my writing process because I just write. Essentially, kind of, it really is just a case if I feel inspired, I usually write something. I'm not someone, I'm particularly, I guess you could say, specific about not tinkering with things. I believe in organic writing, and I forget which writer it was who felt the same, but in a case of like, not fiddling, people have this obsession with making things better, or, fiddling, putting this and putting that in. I like to just be organic and have the stories or the poems as they are, and I'll maybe change a few things or I'll add something that I've forgotten. But other than that, I'm generally quite an organic, like I suppose you could say that this sounds really conceited, but like the Jackson Pollock, where you just flick the paintbrush rather than a Bob Ross where he really does, go into it, if that makes any sense at all.
Yes, it absolutely does. And you're not the first writer who has mentioned Jackson Pollock, which is kind of interesting to me, because I would never put those two together. I mean, is there anything that you do creatively besides writing? I mean, speaking of painting, do you do any other creative outlets besides writing?
Well, for art, I always liked art. I wish I could paint. I'm really not a good painter. I like doing digital collages and handmade collages. I mean, we were in high school, and I was basically told by my teacher, she went, well, you're not very good at anything else, but you can do collage. So I kind
Jeez, thanks.
yeah, I know. So I was kind of like, oh, okay. But other than that, I think writing is probably my main thing, because I'm not good at painting, but I do like doing the collage kind of thing. I mean, I generally sing in the shower like most people.
All right, wait, time out. What do you sing in the shower? I need to know. Everybody has a song they go to,
Oh,
and I will tell you my embarrassing one when you tell me yours.
see, it depends, because I think usually I listen to a lot of Lana Del Rey, so I usually sing Lana Del Rey. I like Pink
Nice.
Floyd, but then sometimes if there's been a song that I've heard and it's in my head, like at the minute there's a song by Thumpasaurus. It's on TikTok. It's everywhere. I don't know if you lot have heard it, about the you like my straw, I like yours too, do or something. It's really catchy, and I just keep singing it.
I sing Eagles songs. I love the Eagles. Their songs are easy to sing, and Don Henley's in my range. So I can sing some Eagles tunes, but that's embarrassing. And I live with a singer who actually sings amazingly well. So it's really, I kind of keep my mouth shut a lot of the time. I just, I don't want to even be in the general vicinity of an actually good singer. Do you have any literary heroes or writers that you look up to for influence and inspiration?
Definitely, I think Sylvia Plath is a main one. I only went to college for about a year, and then I dropped out because the education system just doesn't suit my the way I learn and the way I function. So, but just before I did drop out, we started learning about her. And I bought the collection Ariel, and then I really enjoyed the fact that she spoke about the darker side of life and, mental illness. And I think I really resonated with that. For some reason, I've always been interested in the darker things. Even when I was younger, I always liked specifically the Victorian, like Dickens period, where it's all like the foggy, smoggy London kind of vibe, which I suppose is what you could say I go for in my writing. But Sylvia Plath, I think, is definitely one. Also, Charles Bukowski, because I like the way he uses simple words, but in such a poetic way.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think George Bataille at the minute. I don't know if you've read Story of the Eye.
No, get my pen out. Hold on, because I'm trying to expand my horizons. The Eye, go ahead.
Yeah, so that book in particular is definitely not for everyone. It's definitely can be a controversial book, But this particular image where he uses eyes and eggs interchangeably, and actually one of the poems in the collection Maggot, Milk and Eggs, which Expat published last year, is inspired by that. But I think it's such an interesting metaphor, and I love metaphors anyway. But he actually, what's unique about it, he actually explains in the middle to you what the connection is, and he goes back to his childhood. So it sounds like it would spoil it, but it really enhances the story, I think.
That's so interesting. Well, I'm really going to look into it because I do like the darker stuff as well. Um, Not sure why that came to be. I just love it. I like to explore things that scare me. Do you find that bringing darker stuff into your world helps you navigate your own feelings in life?
I think so, definitely. I think that's probably why I write a lot of the darker stuff, because of all what's happened in the past. And I think because my grandfather on my dad's side, he likes to comment on my writing as being dark, and he calls them slit your throaties, is what he says that I write.
That's
So,
kind of funny.
yeah, so I'm kind of known for it, but I think generally, I don't know what it is, I just don't gravitate towards happy stories. But I think as well, people tend to shy away from the darker side of life, and people tend to want to forget that. But I think there's just something in particular about dark emotions that really enhance stories, I think, or it really brings a sort of humanness to them, I think.
Now, do you have any author friends that help you with your writing? Like, do you have a group of people that you're like, all right, I'm just going to throw this out there. Let me know what you think, that inspire you, that you're friends with? I mean, I mean, by friends, I mean like we do here, where we're friends in the literary world online, and then we get to meet once in a while on video, stuff like that.
Generally, I think I usually send them once they're done, but I don't usually ask people for advice. And like the reason for this is because I think I'm so not in a conceited way. It's more a case of I'm very like anal about the way I do things. About, this is kind of like, this is a story, this is how it's going to be. You can like it or you can, hate it, but it's not like, I'll take people's opinions on board, but I think for me, it's better that it's just a solitary act, and then it goes out, and then people, deal with it in however way they choose.
Don't you think it's a brave act for you? Because I see you posting on it all the time about reading in public. I'm scared. I'm a pretty outgoing person, but to read my work in public scares me. I find that to be a very brave act, to put yourself out there as is. What does that do for you? How does it feel to be someone who reads in public?
It's definitely interesting. I think I'm getting a bit better at it now, because before, only a few months ago, my heart would be like racing 10 to the dozen, and I could feel my hands start to shake. But I think it's nice to get the instant applause, and it sort of, it feeds that sort of sense of, needing that validation where you think, oh, I'm actually good at this, which I think is something that we all crave, whether we deny it or not. And it's also interesting to see how people perceive your writing, and how it's also interesting from the other side is how to see how different people write. There are so many different styles, and it just goes to show is how people approach writing so differently.
When you're looking out at the faces, you're also getting that direct reaction. Sometimes when it's online and it goes out into the ether and people are like, this is great. What a great poem. But are they really reading it? Are they really understanding it? Right. So when you're in public with folks, you get to see that immediate light in their eyes. I think that would be really cool. I'm still too nervous to put myself in a public sphere, because I'm sure, like you, those are your feelings. Those are your words. So if a bad reaction happened, it would be rough for me. I think it would be rough.
It would definitely be for me. I think but I think generally the ones I go to, it's kind of, even if you don't like it, you just, applaud anyway, because it's somebody's work, whether you, like that style or whether you don't.
Now, do you, when you write, feel energized when you write, or is it something that drains your energy?
I don't think it drains my energy, and I don't know whether it energizes me or not, but I'd say it satisfies a part of me where, um, if I need to write or I feel this part, it satisfies the sort. It's kind of like if you're hungry and you've got a specific craving for something, and then you finally get that specific thing, and it just satisfies the craving long enough until the next week where you want it again.
Hmm, that's really interesting. Now, when you're writing, so I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about process. When
Yeah,
you're
sure.
choosing words, I've read what I love what you do. I think you're extremely, extremely talented, and you write along my style that I really enjoy. When you're choosing your words, do you have an audience in mind, or where you're like, all right, this is who I want to speak to in this poem? Or do you just kind of fly blind and see who receives the words?
I don't think I have a particular audience in mind. I think generally I always know that the people who are going to appreciate it will appreciate it. And for whatever reason, people's tastes differ.
Mhm.
And it can be for some, it cannot be for others. There are some times where I've got a specific message and I want specific people to hear the message. But other than that, I think it's just a case of once it's out there, I know there's certain people who like that kind of thing will perhaps
Mhm.
enjoy it. And I think you've just got to let that, but I think people take too much stock of what others say sometimes.
Mhm.
And I think as a writer, you end up taking on what other people think makes a good writing as opposed to it
Mhm.
being an art form, which is what I stand for, it being an art form rather than something that can be molded or shaped. Like I always pride myself on being, a non-schooled, writer where I just fly by the seat of my pants. And like I said, people either like it or they don't, and that's fine.
How do you think where you grew up shaped your writing?
Well, I live in a really small town, so there wasn't now there's a bit more of a creative scene, but back then that I think that's why I read a lot because it gave me perspective and it gave me seeing more of the world. And I've also been fortunate enough to get to travel quite a lot since I've been young. And it gives me that experience of being able to see other places and see how different people live. And that's why I think I go to different forms of media. Like I listen to a lot of music, I watch a lot of films, and because I spoke to people about this, which is where some of my writing isn't always about something that's happened to me. It can be about somebody else's story, although that is a fine line. You've got to be careful not to be telling another person's narrative. But it's about the inspiration, the feeling to be like, oh, well, I can recognize that feeling, even though I've not experienced that specific event.
That takes quite a bit of empathy to be able to do that well. Um, and I think that sometimes, you will read folks who take on a different voice or someone else, and it doesn't ring true because they're not empathizing. They're trying to view from the outside looking in. So that's a really difficult task to be able to do that, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think I pride myself on being an empathic person. I think everybody should at least try to be empathetic to
mhm,
others
mhm,
because we have a tendency to be very reactionary. Like, and I'm guilty of it myself. There are certain behaviors where I instantly feel, completely just disgusted by. But then you've got to take a step back and sort of think, well, why is this person acting this way? And sometimes you're not mentally prepared for that, or you're not mentally there to do so. But at the
mhm.
times that you are, you should always at least have that inkling to explore what another person might be feeling or why they act in a certain way. And I think it helps to perhaps temper your emotions and your reactions to somebody.
That's interesting. I can tell, for me, I would say I'm an empathetic person, but I also have a tendency to like be up all the time, like always in
Yeah.
a good mood because I want everybody. So I want all boats to rise, but not necessarily, but not necessarily taking in mind that sometimes boats take a little longer. Some boats are having more difficulty. They may not be able to rise. And so just having to be able to be empathetic to the level that you are talking about is a very rare thing, I think, sadly, in today's world. Because I try, but I fall very short a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think as well we get caught up in where we think we are, like in terms of I can say, oh well, I know this is right about something, so why can't you see that? But we all live in different bodies, we all have different brains,
Mhm.
and even though we might think the same on some things, we aren't exactly the same. And I think we have to work together a bit more. Like it's kind of a case of now it's a bit dog eat dog where people are very all about themselves, and that's not always a bad thing. You should always take care of yourself first.
Mhm.
But I think people have gone slightly overboard with it, and now people are miscommunicating and nobody's taking the time to understand each other.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, do you have anything you'd like to talk to us about what you're working on? I know some of what you're working on, but the dates that you're thinking that you might have your stuff coming out.
Well, the plan is for the Maggot on Maple Street is January. And early reviews will be, the book's going to be sent out for early reviews probably very soon. We're just starting working on the actual interior now. And that shouldn't take too long. It's a relatively short collection. And then pretty much January is probably the date I think we want to. I think it seems fitting really is to, rather than releasing it at the end of the year, to do it at the start of a new one. I think it gives
Okay.
something to the new year. So we'll release that then. And then other than that, I think I'll just probably continue with my Substack and trying to get more people to read it. I mean, it's, to be fair, it's got almost 25, 30 followers, and I've only started it about a month ago.
Mhm.
And I like doing that because I used to want to be a journalist before I was really set on becoming an author. So it gives me a bit of a time to do my sort of more journalistic kind of thing.
Oh, that's very cool. So what kind of journalism, like what would be your, like, journalists have either general journalism or they'll find like a niche where they want to go, like environmental journalism or crime, or do you have a journalism niche that you're interested in?
I think probably the more literary side where it's like sort of, I don't know, the journalism that's got a bit of a literary twist to it, or the sort of essays on different parts of culture or different things. And then also I am interested in true crime, so that's an interesting thing. But I just find it, I don't know, that the thing of reporting really fascinating. I did a day at the local newspaper when I was in college, and that we went round and I remember she had a little booklet and we were interviewing people, and I was taking down little quotes and stuff from people that they said about, someone had stolen some scrap metal or something like that.
Groundbreaking
Yeah,
journalism.
yeah. It was a real talk of the town that day.
Awesome. Well, Courtney, I'm so glad that you came on with us. This has been really great to actually speak with you in person, to hear all your insights. I really do appreciate it.
It's been really good, yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.